So this is why so many people have weak sense of self identities, because they are not themselves and they are not willing to experience and embrace and ultimately accept their whole self yet. Now, when you fluctuate on the pendulum from identifying with a part of yourself, letting go and experiencing the opposite of it, that's the gold. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery. Welcome back to my public YouTube channel. We are going to be discussing about something that is absolutely very significant and very valuable to understand a little bit more about. So ultimately, I am really glad to have you here right now in this moment. Okay? We are going to be talking about the identity and how to actually have a strong identity that is truly rooted in the true, authentic self. When you have a strong identity, you are now very attractive to a lot of people and a lot of things, because in many ways you are understanding yourself to such a degree that you are allowing everything to naturally come to you that is in resonance with your understanding of yourself or your own identity. This is like one of the most powerful states to get into. It takes time to allow yourself to get to that state, and there is a process. And this is a little bit about what I'm going to be discussing in today's video. So if you want to understand how to have a strong identity and be able to completely change your life in many different ways because of that, this is absolutely going to be a video that is for you. So what I would recommend is staying tuned for the rest of this video. I will see you on the other side. All right, let me first start off with introducing myself just in case you don't know who I am. My name is JeremiahJSchwartz. I am a professional occultist. I'm initiated in the entirety of the Kabbalistic tree. I'm studied when it comes to planetary energies in association with astrology. I'm also studied when it comes to the nervous system and its relationship to trauma as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this. So let's first break this word down. Identity. Okay, so every single one of us listening to this right now, we are an entity, like an actual entity, which really is a unique conglomeration of energy that is you. That is what an entity is. It is a unique signature of energy that makes up you and your authenticity for whatever you is. And that you that I'm discussing is going to look different for every single person. Okay, my authenticity is going to look different than your authenticity. And then your authenticity is going to look different than that person's authenticity. Yet it's still authentic to you. And get this is where it's even more nuanced. Authenticity even changes too. But it is a state of being. There's a feeling to what authenticity is, to what the true self is. So once again, we are talking about the identity. Now, in modern times, we are living in a crisis point where most people do not have a strong in one way of understanding it, most people do not have a strong identity. And not only do most people have a strong identity, but some people, let me say it like this, most people are actually identified with parts of themselves that are actually rooted in certain fragmentations from trauma that they've experienced in the past. So therefore, the identity that they're actually assuming is not the true them. It is not their central self. It is a fragmentation of what they are. It's a part of them, but it's not the whole them. So a lot of people are overly attached and identified with some of these fragments, and they may think that they have a strong identity because they understand this fragmentation within their system, but that is very malleable in itself, and it is very fragile because anything that is outside of the authentic self is eventually going to change. It is going to, and not just change, but it is going to have to be kind of let go in many respects. So ultimately, that is not a strong identity. It is not necessarily firm and grounded like the true self, the authentic self. So as I was saying, most people on our planet today are in this state where their identities are attached to certain fragmentations of their psyche. Now, how do we start a process of actually understanding what is underneath the surface? How do we start a process of actually understanding what is the authentic self? And then how do we get a sense of identity working with the authentic self? Well, here's the first thing that we really have to do and we have to understand. When it comes to the authentic self, first of all, every single person has one. Everyone has an authentic self. As I said, most people are not in touch with this state within themselves because of certain experiences and certain traumas that they've been through in the past. So one of the biggest reasons why we typically do not have a connection with our authentic self is because we are in resistance to certain feelings and certain memories that are actually existing within our bodies as a whole, that's existing within our nervous systems. So when I was discussing about the traumas that are, when I was talking about some of the traumas that we have experienced in our past, there are feelings and there are memories that are actually connected to those traumas that in many respects can feel like they're actually frozen in time within our system. And this can even be subconscious and unconscious to us. In other words, we could be living our life thinking we're living in a certain way, thinking this is who I am. But in reality, we are literally carrying a deep grief or a deep sadness or a deep fear of abandonment, a deep anxiety of something that took place in the past. And we can feel those emotions in the present moment, but have no idea why they're there or where they're coming from, when in reality, they are coming from the past. So the biggest thing that really keeps people from being in touch with their authentic self is actually being in resistance to a lot of these repressed negative emotions and a lot of these parts of themselves that are actually still frozen in the past. So a resistance to these things is what's actually, for our entire system, keeping us in a state of dysregulation, which basically means there is not a healthy, unique balance that is taking place within our system. And if there's not a unique, healthy balance, then it's easier for us to veer off from one side to another rather than returning to the center and understanding the authentic self and experiencing what life is like living from that state. Okay? So what's going on here? Why are people in so much resistance to a lot of these repressed energies inside of themselves? Well, the answer to this question is actually pretty simple. It's because it is scary and it is uncomfortable to allow yourself to go into these parts of your past and to re-feel in many ways those same emotions that you once felt when you were going through that trauma, as well as to review and to re-see from the eyes and from the lens of your old self when you were going through those situations and when you were experiencing that trauma. That is flat out for everybody a hard process to go through. And that is a scary process. But at the same time, that's okay. it's okay that it's a hard process, and it's okay that it's scary. And what there needs to be is there needs to be an acceptance to this um, integrative process so that we can actually start healing. And when we start healing these repressed parts of the self and these emotions, then we start to create enough regulation within the system that then naturally within time starts to return us to an authentic self state. It starts to return us to a true self state of being and way of living, where we actually start to have a really strong, real, authentic identity of who we are and what we are, and largely what we might be doing here. Okay. So, as I was saying, most people are identified with these certain fragmentations in the psyche, and a lot of the times, people are going to be identified with protector fragments. So, the protectors are the fragments that are protecting the vulnerabilities that are basically the parts of ourself that are holding a lot of the sadness and the pains from the past traumas. So, if we are identified with a protector fragmentation in the psyche, and we form our inner sense of self or our inner identity from that protector fragment, we are now viewing the world from this one fragmentation of self and not the whole self. And if it's, especially if it's one of these protector fragments, we are going to be much more in a survivalistic type of energy where we are looking for arguments. We are looking for things that are dangerous. We are looking for things that are trying to screw us over. We're basically looking for the things that once happened to us in the past to make sure that they don't happen again. And then we're also doing things that are keeping us away and keeping us distracted from these other parts of the self with these vulnerabilities and these sensitivities with these repressed emotions, because those same protector energies are trying to actually protect you by keeping you away from the emotional feeling of what you once experienced. Because during that time that you experienced it, you probably didn't have the capacity to understand what was going on, and you didn't have the capacity to actually process it and integrate it. So at that point in time, that protector energy actually helped you. And in many ways, it got you through that trauma and it got you through that situation. The only problem is that now when you're an adult and you're looking to really integrate these things and you're looking to heal these things, it now requires us to go back to those vulnerabilities. It requires us to feel what we once couldn't, feel. And sometimes these protector energies inside of us don't fully understand how old we actually are in the present moment. So this protector energy inside of me may potentially think that I'm still 5 years old and I'm still going through some of the same abuse that I once went through when I was 5. And that protector energy is actually still, right now, as I'm 28 years old, trying to keep me protected from feeling those same emotions that I once felt when I was 5 years old. So it's all about, building relationships with all these different parts of the self, definitely from the protector parts of the self, so that there can be a trust in the inner system to then start working with the vulnerabilities. And that trust is really built by creating a healthy foundation and creating a foundation that creates safety in your life, a consistent sense of safety, so that those protectors can start to realize, okay, we see you're making an effort to create healthy foundations in your life and to create safe circumstances. Maybe we don't need to be on such high alert right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to step to the side for a little bit, and we're going to give you some more room to, be with these vulnerabilities that are, important for you to process and integrate so that you can heal. And this process it can be quite complex. And, as we're taking everything full circle into the identity and the sense of self, once again, this is one of the really scary things that comes into place when we are doing this work and we're trying to understand, who is our true self and what is our authentic self. Because if we are so identified with one of these fragmentations within the self, then that means that in order to start understanding the true self, there's going to need to be some form of identity death, because the identity that we are attached to isn't actually who we really are. And it's something that we're attaching to out of resistance to something on the complete polar opposite, which is a vulnerability. So this is the reason why so many people don't really jump into this healing integrative work. And it's because it is really scary, and it really has an ability to kind of shatter all your sense of, it has an ability to really shatter your entire sense of self in many respects. And that changes a lot of things in your actual life. Now, is this something that's bad? Absolutely not. This is actually something that needs to happen in many respects, and it's very important. But of course, it can be valuable to educate yourself on this process so that you understand how to, ease your way into it, rather than just having a whole, dump truck just hit you out of nowhere and everything just starts completely changing for you. And you're not really ready to process the things that are happening. And then from all that craziness, potentially re-traumatizing yourself. Okay, that's something that you definitely don't want to happen. So in many ways, I can completely understand why a lot of people choose to not do their real healing work and choose not to face their traumas. But they're also doing that at a cost to their potential and to them living lives that are actually worth living. So once again, the only way to know the true self is by embracing all of you and all the different parts of you. So when someone's attached to this fragmentation in their psyche, that is much more of a protector fragment, they are thinking that is them. The person thinks this fragment is their whole being. Therefore, they're going to base their reality, they're going to base their belief systems, they're going to base their relationships, they're going to base their thought patterns, they're going to base their emotional states all on this one fragmentation. And most likely, they are going to create feedback loops that continue to keep that fragmentation and that attachment with the identity to the fragmentation alive. So that's like manifesting or actively manifesting other people that actually help to prop up your attachment and your connection to this one fragment. And people create entire lives built around fragmentations with their own identification in that fragment. So you can imagine, once again, when someone starts letting go of some of the resistance to that vulnerability on the complete other end of the spectrum to the fragmentation that they're attached to, things change pretty significantly. I mean, your entire sense of self undoes itself. The entire life that you created, the relationships, the work environment, your belief system, the way you feel, it really changes. And oftentimes, I mean, the more you were in resistance to a certain energy, the more that energy is now actually in many ways coming up through your nervous system, trying to come through the subconscious or the unconscious, and in some ways trying to kind of possess you to show you it's time to face me, or it's time to accept me. It's time to be with me. This is absolutely how I experienced it in my life. There was a bunch of different vulnerabilities inside of myself that I have lived a very long time of my life repressing and trying to keep at bay or trying to stay away from. And because I am sensitive and because I'm truly wanting to heal and I'm wanting to know more about myself and I'm wanting to integrate, that intention alone is enough to allow these things to naturally start seeping through the subconscious of myself and kind of peek their head and say, hey, I'm inside of you. Hey, I'm your grief. Hey, I'm your abandonment. Hey, I'm your fear. Hey, I'm your sadness. I'm right here. Hey, I'm your anger. I'm right here. And, over time, it it almost takes over the system. It's like the more you're really wanting to go through this process of integration, the more sensitive you are also becoming, and the more you can't really resist these other parts of yourself. It comes to a point where you realize you're hitting a dead end, and the only way through is to face what is needing to be faced within the self. And what I'm saying, the reason why I'm saying this is because when it comes to identity, sometimes not only are we identified with a certain fragmentation in our psyche, but as I said, with the nature of fragmentation, fragment is two splits. Okay? It's like a fragment is one going into two. So there's always a complete opposite to the fragment. So if we're identified with a certain fragment, what is the complete opposite? Because that's probably what's going to come through our system as soon as we start letting go of our attachment to that identity, which is the complete opposite of what everything you thought was. It's the complete opposite of who you thought you were, what you thought you were, how you thought life functioned, how you thought you felt, what you thought about your different relationships, what you thought about your family circumstances, everything. It's the complete opposite. And that, think about that. That is scary, to go from thinking this is who you are to then realizing it's not, and realizing this may be a fragment within yourself that's rooted in trauma, and then starting the process of letting go and allowing your body to naturally start showing you, what is it that you're in resistance to, and then experiencing the complete contrast and the complete opposite of that fragment, which is like a hurt little kid, a sad little kid, an abandoned, depressed, lonely, angry little kid that you've neglected inside of yourself for years. Okay? So this is why so many people have weak sense of self identities, because they are not themselves and they are not willing to experience and embrace and ultimately accept their whole self yet. Now, when you fluctuate on the pendulum from identifying with a part of yourself, letting go and experiencing the opposite of it, that's the gold. That's where a lot of the integration and a lot of the deeper healing is happening. And I want to say this as well. Is it wrong to identify with fragmentations in your psyche? No, it's not. Is it wrong to have fragmentations in your psyche? No, it's not. Everyone has this. We've all been through trauma. It's just a part of this life experience. And these different fragments are literally like different personalities inside of the self. And it's very natural. There's nothing wrong about it. They all are there for a specific reason. And it helps give you the exact circumstances that you personally need to navigate your soul's evolution in this lifetime. So being identified with a certain fragment within yourself is nothing to be ashamed about. It is very natural, and in many respects, it's healthy. But there does come a point where you should start to be aware enough to realize that is not the whole you. That is not the authentic you. Okay. So when we make that shift from oftentimes identifying with our protectors, and then we go into the vulnerabilities, that is where a lot of the healing and a lot of the integration and, of course, a lot of the feeling really starts to take place. Now, even when this is happening, there is a sense of moving backwards in time. So I personally work with a lot of people on this stuff when I'm doing my mentorships. And if anyone's listening to me and you are really resonating with the things that I'm talking about, and you feel like this is valuable stuff for you to understand more about, and if you want to do this deeper work, definitely look into booking a mentorship with me. You can do that at the second link in my YouTube video descriptions. That is where you can book a mentorship with me. Okay, but as I was saying, in my mentorships, I can see how when people are going through this process, and I've noticed this in myself too, there is a feeling of traveling backwards in time. Like it's literally like we're revisiting the past, And of course, when you're traveling backwards in time, it can also give you the sensations and the feelings that you're not moving forwards. Because as I just said, it's like we're traveling backwards. So inherently, there's a feeling and a sense that it's like we're not moving forward with our life. So people are like, in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, etc. And they're wondering, like, is this something wrong or is this something bad? Because I feel like I'm not making progress. I feel like I'm not, living up to the image that I once had of myself, that I saw myself, projected in the future. And this is very natural. It's very natural to feel like, oh, I'm not making progress, and to be upset about that and to feel however you need to feel about that. But ultimately, traveling backwards and revisiting the past and integrating those things that were once sort of stagnant within your system because they were repressed is actually simultaneously with the law of contrast, the law of polarity, moving you in the future farther than what you could ever imagine. So in many ways, the deeper you're going into the past, the farther you're going into the future. And in reality, all of it is actually happening at once. Because when we look at the bigger picture, past, present, and future, if we zoom out and we enter into an astral space, a soul space, it's all at once. So you're never moving in the past at the cost of your future. You are literally moving in the past while moving into your future, while all being in the present moment. Okay, so it's kind of a trippy thought to contemplate, but this is absolutely something that I noticed. And of course, something that does take place, and it is worth understanding. So when we are revisiting the past and we're going into these vulnerabilities, there once again is another major shift and a change to our identity, to the way that we are understanding ourselves and the way that we are seeing the world and the way that we are experiencing life. Because now we're working with another fragmentation of ourself that is a vulnerable fragmentation, that is a sad, lonely, hurt, angry fragmentation. And guess what? That's still, even though this is a vulnerable part that's holding these emotions, and we can be with that and we can feel those and heal, it's still a fragment. It's not the whole you. That is not who you are in your totality. It's a part of you. And yes, it's an important part of you, like all of your parts, but it's just a part of you. So there still is a central you, and there's an authentic you that has a grounded, firm identity of who and what you are. But the only way we're going to really get there and get to that central space and that true self is by first embracing these other fragments that were the most repressed ones within our system. So as we're doing that, our sense of self can completely change. And it does completely change. And in many ways, we start seeing from the eyes of that hurt child or of that hurt person that we once were in the past. And we start refeeling those emotions. It's almost like we're reliving those situations in the present moment as adults. And this is one of the scariest parts about this integration process, especially as you're an adult and you have responsibilities that you need to take care of, like going to work, taking care of kids, having a partner that requires your attention, doing something publicly, just simply going to the market, filling up your gas, hanging out with friends. These things can feel really challenging and in many ways hard to go through. These everyday life things that a lot of people do can seem really sensitive and can seem really hard to go through when you're in this phase of working with your deeper exiles and your deeper vulnerabilities in the self. But once again, just because it's uncomfortable and just because it's hard, does that mean it's bad? Absolutely not. It just means that you have to give yourself a little bit more patience and a little bit more acceptance and really a little bit more love to be able to do that and to go through that. And there are ways to kind of understand what's going on in your system. For, let's say, you have to go to work and you have to do something at work that requires you to, you know, be a certain way where you're more of an adult rather than feeling these heavy emotions. There are ways to actually build these relationships with these different parts of yourself, and you can tell them, hey, can you step aside for just, an hour or 2 hours while I do this thing at work, and then when I'm done, I will be with you again. And those parts of you can, as you're building relationships with them, they can say, yeah, that's fine, I will step aside, I'll let you do what you do, and then afterwards, I want you to be with me again. And then you can feel those same emotions again and feel whatever those feelings are. But I mean, honestly, the way that I like to kind of approach it is I like to just go into it. So this is just me personally. I tend to have a little bit more capacity than um, the average person, but I like to really just go into these things and I like to be with them in my everyday life. So even like right now, like as I'm feeling, everything that it is that I'm feeling inside of my body, the negative emotions, the positive emotions, I'm allowing those feelings to be here right now in this present moment as I'm recording this video to a public audience. And in many ways, I know that by the laws of state transfer, on an energetic level for every single person that is listening to this, there is an energetic state transfer that is actually taking place right now, where as I'm going through my processing, it is transferring to those of you that are watching that is going to actually help you do more of your processing and more of your integration. Okay. But ultimately, once again, it builds a even deeper relationship with myself, with these different parts of myself, especially these vulnerabilities, because I'm willing to take them to work with me. I'm willing to take them in public with me. I have enough safety and trust in myself to be able to bring these parts of me to work or to, my calls with different clients or to the markets, to the gas station without needing to fully shut them off. And I'm not perfect. So there's times where sometimes something happens and it snaps me into a different energy where maybe I'm a little bit more not as present. Maybe I'm a little bit more in a protector energy. Like if I'm outside and I'm driving my car and someone cuts me off and they honk at me, that might be something that triggers me more into a protective energy where I'm a little bit more on guard and I'm, in a place where I'm like, fuck you. And that's different than being with the vulnerabilities. But this is me just communicating like what this sort of looks like, from a personal example. But yeah, so, within time, as you are working with processing and integrating these different parts of yourself, building the trust between these different parts of yourself, allowing your identity to be malleable during that time, meaning you're not going to have a strong sense of self when you're going through these shifts. It's going to feel like a lot of disillusion and it's going to feel like a lot of ego death because you are shifting between these different fragments in your psyche that are literally viewing the world in completely different ways. So, of course, that's going to cause massive ego death when you're experiencing these fluctuations. And that's very natural and it's very normal. But within time, as that integration occurs, there will be a return to balance and regulation within your system that will bring you to a central state. It will literally bring you to a center space that is going to become a new sense of self-identity. And with it, it is a feeling and it is a state of being that, as I said, the authentic self changes too. But when you get to that point where you align enough and you regulate enough to understand your authentic self, there is this visceral and this primal connection that you will feel from this state of being. And you will know it as you. You will know it as your true self. This is like what you're actually feeling, what you're actually thinking. And this state and this version of you, this authentic self version, has the ability to be the inner mediator and the inner parent to all of these other parts of you. so that when there's these vulnerable parts that are feeling sadness, and then when there's these protector parts that are trying to keep you safe from feeling certain things, as the central self, you have an ability to actually communicate with these parts of you. And for example, like if you're feeling a certain way, you can say, hey, I'm aware you're feeling this way. I'm going to feel this with you, and everything's going to be okay. If a protector part is coming through and it's like trying to, curse someone out, or it's trying to get you to do something to distract yourself away from feeling, you can say, hey, I'm aware you're here and I appreciate you for being here, but it's okay. I got this. I'm willing to feel this. You can trust me. And that energy can say, oh, okay, I got you. And then it gives you that center space, that authentic self space to go through that integration that it is that you're needing to go through. Okay? This is how you achieve, and this is how you have a very strong sense of self and identity. And within time, you build on that. So the more connected you are with your authentic self, the more of a momentum that actually builds, and it starts to grow and grow and grow. But that also doesn't mean there's not times where maybe your foundation gets a little bit off, and maybe there's some more dysregulation happening in the system, and then maybe more things surface from the past that you weren't previously aware of, and then you may experience another fragment of yourself again coming through your nervous system. So there may still be times where you actually may have a sense of losing touch of your authentic self, but you can also know the nature of the psyche and the nature of these different fragments and how you create acceptance with them by feeling what it is that they're feeling and understanding them, which eventually integrates them and then naturally brings you into an authentic self. So you don't need to attach to your authentic self. When you are accepting your whole system and you're integrating, naturally, it will return you back to the true self every single time. It's just a natural thing because that's what you are. And it only makes sense that as you're integrating and accepting what's important within your system, that it naturally comes into some form of a harmony or some form of a homeostasis. All right. So with that being said, this is everything that I really needed to talk about in this video. If you feel like you got value from this, definitely let me know. Hit the thumbs up button. That's the first way that you can let me know. Smash that thumbs up button. Drop down in the comment section and let me know exactly what you gained from this video. Let me know what you learned from this video. If you have any questions on any of the things that I was really talking about, go ahead and leave the questions. I can't promise I'm going to respond to them, but I would love to see where your mind is at. And I would love to see, what are some of these questions that you're asking? I want to know a little bit more about them. Okay. So go ahead and fill up that comment section. Make sure you are hitting the notification bell on my YouTube channel so you are getting notified whenever I'm posting videos, because these videos are extremely valuable and I have a way of posting in alignment with what people are needing to learn at that exact time they're needing to learn it. So if you want to tune into that current, hit the notification bell. Now, if you want to get more value from what it is that I'm teaching as well, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. When you're subscribing to the channel, you are further energetically connecting to everything it is that I am communicating to you. So if you want to take advantage of it, subscribe to the channel. If not, go ahead and forget about it. Now, copy and paste this link. I encourage you to send it out to anyone that you feel like is going to gain value from this. There is absolutely people that need to hear this information. This is advanced information on psychology, emotional processing, nervous system regulation that I am telling you. You're not finding this everywhere. So go ahead and do someone else the favor and send them this video if you feel like it will offer them value. Okay? Now, I'm going to say this. Go into the first link in that YouTube description. This is my Patreon. Okay? On my Patreon, I have exclusive content, up to 260 plus different videos that are not on my public channel. Now, these videos are not on my public channel for many intentional reasons. It is not meant for everyone. This is meant for people that are really taking that deeper step into their self-development process. I have really advanced occult knowledge, occult practices that are recorded on video that actually teach you how to go through the steps of performing some of these practices. I have education on trauma, education on creating a healthy foundation that will help you start to regulate your nervous system. And all of this different content is also organized in different sections and different collections on the Patreon itself, so that when you're signed up, you have a nice organized structure to go through to decide what it is that you're trying to study and look more into. Okay, all the things that you need to know are over on that Patreon. So definitely consider it. And there's over 560 members that are actively a part of the Patreon right now. And that's a lot of people. That's half of 1,000 people all in one area. And it's only continuing to grow. Okay. Now, as you're in tier number 3 and 4, you are gaining access to something that is very unique. This is called the Universe B Vampire Service. This is a ritual. This is actually the only ritual that I perform on the collective of my, platform. That is an energetic transference from me to the participant. As I'm someone who's been through some really deep occult initiatory practices, there's a lot of different uniquenesses and changes that I've been able to experience within myself and within my energy field, which I can transfer consciously through ritual to the participants to help support them through their emotional processing with some of the deepest repressed emotions inside of their system, and helping them to understand some of those deeper aspects of their own subconscious and unconscious mind to be able to turn into their own authenticity and turn into their own power and potential. Okay, it's a very powerful ritual service. There is over 250 people that are active participants of this specific ritual service, and it is performed on the full moon of every single month. So if you're wanting to take advantage of it, you can figure out when the full moon is for this month, and then you go one day behind, and that would be the deadline to sign up. The deadline. So if you want to take advantage, you just sign up right away, and then you're going to be added into this ritual every single month. Okay, as long as you are the proper tier to get into that ritual. It's very powerful. And a lot of the energetic changes that I do in the ritual, the vampiric effect is a very magnetizing effect. So I change the energetic structure to spin much more in a counterclockwise positioning, which helps to pull in from darker energies and chaos. So obviously this also helps the process of surfacing repressed negative emotions to be felt and to be integrated, but it also pulls in from around you. And what that gives you an ability to do is transmute in a more effective way these darker energies and chaos in general, and then turn it into your own potential, turn it into your own authenticity. So what that could look like practically is you pulling energy out of someone's artificial self or inauthentic self, turning it into your own potential while leaving that person in a position where they now have to face who they really are, or they have to face some of those more repressed parts of themselves. So it becomes a win-win situation. And yes, this is a very taboo form of occultism, but there's absolutely a bunch of people that are in resonance with this type of stuff and need someone to help support them on the process. And that's what I do. So just check in with yourself. This service is not meant for everyone. This is meant for people that have a little bit larger of a capacity and are in more resonance with some of these darker occult sciences. Now, if that is you, then this can definitely be for you. And I have thousands of messages of people giving me all different types of feedback of how their lives, changed drastically after receiving the service and all these other things that have taken place. Okay, so check it out. First link in that YouTube description. We'll leave it there. Second link in that YouTube description is what I mentioned earlier in this video today. This is where you can book the mentorships with me. This is also where you can book one-on-one calls with me. If you want to take advantage of it, definitely look into it. Also, in that same second link, you have an option to book a tarot card reading with Alexia. She is a really skilled and gifted tarot card reader who's done my own personal reading, and it was spot on. That's the reason why I have her doing my readings on my channel. And I also help to educate her on the Kabbalistic correspondences that connect from the tree of life to the tarot cards themselves. So if you want to understand what is going on in your life right now and where you're headed in the future in regards to your self-development process and maybe other circumstances, and then connect and then have some of these connections back to the Kabbalistic tree to understand what energies you might be accessing during these different chapters of your life, definitely look into booking this reading with Alexia. It's also in that second link below. We'll leave it there. Third link below, this is called the LUCIFERS Foundation course. This is a very valuable and a very powerful course. If you're someone that is looking to develop a relationship with the energy Lucifer, this course gives you everything you need to know, step-by-step structure with 11 different modules that you are going to have access to for the rest of your life. So if you want to really take this seriously and you want to go deep with it, definitely get this course. Tons of people have already purchased it. People are literally purchasing it practically every single day. So definitely make sure you take advantage of it if that's something you're interested in. We'll leave it there. Fourth link is my YouTube memberships. Now, I would love to have you as a YouTube member. Go ahead, join the YouTube membership, pop in, let me know you're a member, and let's just continue to build up this YouTube community, because at the end of the day, this is like a big family, and it's super fun to have a bunch of familiar faces and like-minded individuals all in one big community. And when you become a YouTube member, your name appears as green. You have a certain badge next to your name. It's very clear that you are a YouTube member. And then you're also getting access to a bunch of other benefits, which I'm not going to go into right now. I'll let you look into those yourself. Okay, so definitely look into it. It's at that fourth link below. Now, the fifth link below, this is the final link. This is all the different book recommendations that I personally have for you. This is a 4 ebook bundle that gives you everything you need to know on the fundamentals of the initiatory process, as well as the different spirits between the angels and the demons and all that important stuff. So it's taking all this advanced occult information and it's bringing it into one place where you can actually understand it in a very digestible way. So it's not you having to read between the lines. It's not you having to try to navigate like these hidden riddles. It's all this stuff right in front of you that you have access to in a very practical way. And you can always refer back to this if you need to as a tool belt with this information that is embedded within these ebooks. Okay, so it's going to give you sigils to different spirits. It's going to give you descriptions to different spirits. It's going to tell you about the planetary energies in association with the spheres on the tree of life and death. It's literally everything. The major arcana with the 22 pathways. I mean, I can't recommend this enough. This is 4 ebook bundle for $128. There are books that are selling for over $600 that, have a lot, they do have a lot of information in it, but it's so hard to read and it doesn't necessarily give you everything in a practical way to understand what you're even reading. This is not that. This is everything in a practical, digestible way. That is what you need for only $128. So, of course, a lot of people are buying this. People are just continuing to buy it. If you want it, look into it. And all that I ask of you is that if you purchase it, recommend it to a friend or to someone that you feel like will also gain value from it. All right. Now, with that being said, we're going to put a bow on it. We're going to wrap it up here, wrap up the gift. And that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.